Spring arrives early in Boston. Audrey Blackwood gazed at the rain falling outside the window of her modern architecture studio. Her fingers traced the edge of her latest sustainable building design, a stark contrast to the upscale neighborhood where her small firm operated. Audrey rubbed her tired eyes, the reflection in her computer screen revealing the exhaustion that came from another late night perfecting blueprints. "I should head home soon," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the gentle hum of the 3D printer. "Audrey, you should call it a day," Marcus, her assistant, called from the doorway. "You've been at those renderings for hours. Even brilliant architects need rest." "Thanks, Marcus." "You're right," Audrey replied with a grateful smile, clearing her drafting table. Despite her success, her eyes always carried a hint of determination mixed with fatigue. Building her own architecture firm from scratch had never been easy. Her father Robert, once a celebrated architect himself, had passed away from a heart attack 3 years ago. She'd inherited his creative vision but not his industry connections, forcing her to forge her own path in the competitive world of sustainable architecture. On her way back to her downtown apartment, Audrey checked her mail. An elegant cream envelope caught her attention. Inside was an invitation printed in gold lettering on premium stock. "Audrey Blackwood is cordially invited to the wedding of Cassidy Blackwood and Blake Reynolds." Audrey sighed deeply. Her younger sister was getting married. Cassidy, with her picture-perfect social media presence and natural social grace, had become engaged to Blake Reynolds, the CEO of a successful tech startup. Entering her minimalist apartment, Audrey dropped the invitation on her modernist coffee table, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions. She poured herself a glass of wine and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Since her father's death, the distance between Audrey and her remaining family had widened into a chasm. Her mother Elaine had always favored Cassidy, impressed by her daughter's social media following and conventional life choices, while viewing Audrey's dedication to sustainable architecture with cold indifference. Audrey was uncertain about attending the wedding. That evening, she opened her laptop to find Cassidy's latest engagement photos plastered across social media, thousands of likes already accumulated. "Perfect couple alert. #blessed #future Mrs. Reynolds," read the caption. Later that night, Audrey sat on her sofa and opened a portfolio of her father's architectural drawings. Running her fingers over his signature, she quietly shed tears. Robert Blackwood might have appeared to be a stern visionary to the outside world, but he had always encouraged Audrey's unconventional designs and respected her creative decisions. Since his death, Audrey felt her place within the family had completely vanished. The next morning, Audrey called her sister. "Thank you for the invitation. I'll be there," she said quietly. "Oh, you're coming? How unexpected." "Mother will be surprised," Cassidy responded, her voice tinged with forced enthusiasm. Sensing the insincerity, Audrey continued, "It's my sister's wedding, after all." "Yes, of course. But Audrey, please wear something appropriate. Blake's family and our investors will be there. It's going to be extremely social media worthy." Those words stung, but Audrey replied calmly, "Don't worry. I won't embarrass your perfect social media moment." After ending the call, Audrey gazed at the rain-streaked cityscape below. She resolved to attend this wedding with dignity, for herself and for her father's memory. On the wedding day, the 5-star Regent Plaza Hotel in downtown Boston was transformed into a social media spectacle. White peonies and gold geometric installations created perfect photo backdrops from entrance to ballroom, with influencers posing on the crimson carpet at strategic intervals. Audrey stepped out of her rideshare, heart pounding against her ribcage as she entered the hotel alone. She wore an architectural black dress she'd designed herself, minimalist yet striking. Despite its elegance, she felt invisible among guests wearing designer labels and statement jewelry. The women were draped in couture gowns, the men in bespoke tuxedos, everyone posing for professional photographers stationed throughout the lobby. "This is like walking onto a movie set," Audrey whispered to herself, clutching her small clutch tighter as if it might shield her from the scrutiny of strangers. When she entered the ceremony venue, an usher guided her to a seat in the last row of the church-like hall adorned with cascading floral installations. Cassidy and Blake's wedding procession unfolded like a carefully choreographed production. The bride, wearing a custom designer gown, glowed under professional lighting that followed her down the aisle. After the ceremony, guests migrated to the grand ballroom where champagne gold decor complemented a ceiling installation of thousands of twinkling lights designed to mimic a star-filled sky. Professional photographers and videographers circled the room, capturing content for Cassidy's inevitable wedding highlight reel. Audrey was directed to a small table near the service entrance. A card labeled Blackwood family sat on the table, but her mother Elaine was nowhere to be seen. She was seated at the head table, smiling for the cameras. As the reception progressed, artfully plated cuisine arrived in synchronized perfection. Though uncomfortable, Audrey found herself appreciating the architectural presentation of each dish. Several times she caught her mother's eye, but Elaine would quickly find something more interesting to focus on. After dinner and the elaborate cake-cutting ceremony, the master of ceremonies tapped his microphone. And now, a special presentation from our bride and groom. The lights dimmed as screens descended from the ceiling. Suddenly, a spotlight illuminated Audrey's table. She straightened, her stomach tightening with anxiety. Cassidy, resplendent in her designer gown, approached from the stage with a microphone, her walk practiced to perfection. Her social media smile was flawless, but Audrey recognized the cold calculation behind her sister's eyes. "Everyone, thank you for being part of our perfect day," Cassidy said, her voice honeyed for the cameras. "Before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge someone special, my sister Audrey." All eyes and several professional cameras turned toward Audrey. She sat perfectly still, her architect's training helping her maintain composure. "My sister has always chosen different paths," Cassidy continued with practiced sincerity. "While some of us build connections and relationships that matter, others build." The screens lit up with images of Audrey's sustainable building designs juxtaposed against Cassidy's glamorous lifestyle photos, each of Cassidy's showing thousands of likes. "Today, I want to talk about what real success means," Cassidy announced, her words met with appreciative murmurs. Audrey's hands trembled beneath the table as she realized what was coming, a public dissection of her life choices. Audrey's throat tightened as her sister continued the public humiliation. "What is true influence?" Cassidy asked dramatically, gesturing toward the screens showing her follower count compared to images of Audrey's empty social media profiles. "Some believe it's building structures no one remembers, while others connect with thousands of people daily, shaping culture and creating genuine impact." Elaine stood gracefully and took the microphone from Cassidy, her expression serene but her eyes cold. As an educator and community leader, she began with practiced warmth. "I've always taught that success is measured by the lives we touch. Some choose isolation and call it independence." She looked pointedly at Audrey. "In today's interconnected world, that kind of success holds very little real value." The ballroom filled with knowing laughter and sympathetic nods. Audrey's cheeks burned with humiliation and rage. Her hands gripped the edge of the table as she prepared to leave with whatever dignity she could salvage. "I have a question," a deep voice cut through the room. The venue fell silent. All eyes turned toward a distinguished man standing at the back of the ballroom. With silver-streaked dark hair and an impeccably tailored suit, he commanded attention without effort. His steel-blue eyes radiated calm authority. "If sustainable architecture has so little value," he continued, approaching the center of the room, "then why was Audrey Blackwood's river renewal project just valued at $60 million? Cassidy's perfect smile faltered. "And you are?" "Nathan Montgomery, Robert Blackwood's former business partner," he stated, his voice resonating through the now silent room. "And the current head of Montgomery International Architecture." Audrey's breath caught. Her father's legendary colleague? She'd heard stories but had never met him. Now he stood in her defense, his presence sending ripples of whispers through the crowd. Nathan walked to the central floor, nodding briefly toward Audrey before turning cold eyes toward Cassidy and Elaine. "Shall we continue discussing who has real value?" he asked with deadly calm. "Or is it time we revealed the truth about Robert Blackwood's architectural legacy?" At Nathan Montgomery's words, the grand ballroom fell into stunned silence. The social media perfect lighting illuminated his composed face as Blake looked at Cassidy with growing confusion. The tech CEO's parents exchanged worried glances. "First, I must apologize," Nathan turned toward Audrey. "Ms. Blackwood, I regret that this revelation comes in such a public setting. However, this was precisely what your father Robert had planned." Audrey stared at Nathan, her professional composure barely masking her shock and confusion. Her hands trembled slightly against the white tablecloth. "This is absurd," Elaine interjected, her carefully maintained poise cracking. "Robert's affairs were managed by Jenkins and Associates. Who exactly are you to make such claims?" Nathan retrieved a slim metallic case from his jacket pocket. "That's partially correct, Elaine. However, Robert began working with me privately a decade ago, specifically regarding his architectural legacy and intellectual property." "That's ridiculous," Cassidy snapped, her camera-ready smile completely gone. "Father's estate was settled. Everything was handled through proper channels." Nathan opened the case and removed a small device. The public estate was settled, yes. But Robert's true legacy was protected through other means. He activated the device, and suddenly the ballroom's screens displayed a holographic rendering of architectural blueprints and legal documents. The heading read Robert Blackwood's Final Professional Testament, dated March 30, 2022. The document detailed his intention to transfer ownership of his most innovative designs, patents, and 85% of Blackwood architectural innovations to Audrey Blackwood, recognizing her as his true intellectual heir. Shocked whispers rippled through the crowd. Elaine and Cassidy exchanged panicked glances as their faces drained of color. Blake's father pulled him aside, urgently whispering something in his ear. Nathan continued with unwavering composure, the remaining 15% provides living security for Elaine Blackwood, though without management rights. Full creative control and leadership of Blackwood architectural innovations transfers immediately to Audrey. He activated another holographic display. This data visualizes 3 years of financial transactions and intellectual property modifications. It clearly documents how Robert's designs were altered and monetized without proper attribution or authorization. The screens displayed a complex network of financial transfers and design alterations. Nathan's explanation remained professional and dispassionate. Robert knew his heart condition was worsening. He was deeply concerned about what would happen after his death, particularly that his true architectural vision would be compromised and that Audrey would be denied her rightful place in his legacy. Tears welled in Audrey's eyes, blurring the holographic displays. She hadn't realized her father had seen everything so clearly or planned so meticulously. She remembered the pride in his eyes when she'd shown him her first sustainable design concept. Robert instructed me to monitor the situation for 3 years, documenting everything while allowing his daughter to establish herself independently, Nathan explained. He deeply respected Audrey's determination to succeed on her own merit, but he also wanted to ensure his intellectual property and vision would ultimately be protected and entrusted to the right hands. Elaine rose from her seat, visibly shaking. This is preposterous. I was Robert's wife. I have the legal right to his company's assets and intellectual property. That's incorrect, Nathan responded calmly. This testament has been authenticated and filed with the Architectural Copyright Office. In fact, the head of the American Institute of Architects Ethics Committee is present today. He nodded toward a distinguished woman at a side table, who acknowledged with a slight nod. This is absurd, Cassidy cried out. We've only honored Father's work. Nathan removed a final item from his case, a small projection device. Perhaps Robert should speak for himself. He activated it, projecting a holographic message. Dear Audrey. If you're seeing this, then Nathan has followed through on my wishes, and you're likely feeling overwhelmed. First, I apologize for the secrecy of the past 3 years, but it was necessary. I needed to confirm what I already believed, that you would continue to create and innovate regardless of external validation. And I needed evidence of how my designs would be treated in my absence. For years, my vision was compromised by those who valued profit and prestige over purpose. As my health declined, I watched plans unfold to sideline you completely and commodify my life's work against everything I believed in. You are my true successor. Your integrity, innovation, and commitment to sustainable design, these are the values that architecture should embody. Your river renewal project alone proves you've surpassed anything I could have taught you. Blackwood Architectural Innovations belongs to you, Audrey. Every blueprint, every concept, every vision for the future. Nathan has ensured this transition is legally ironclad. Most importantly, I've always been proud of you, not because you followed my path, but because you carved your own with greater purpose than I ever achieved. With love and complete confidence, Dad. When the message ended, a profound silence fell over the ballroom. Tears streamed down Audrey's face as she stared at the fading hologram of her father's words. The color had completely drained from Elaine and Cassidy's faces. Blake's father stood abruptly, his voice sharp with indignation. What exactly is happening here? My son was about to marry into a family of intellectual property thieves? Blake stared at Cassidy, his expression a mixture of shock and betrayal. Nathan approached Audrey's table and spoke quietly, Ms. Blackwood, I suggest we leave now. The legal transition is already in motion, and there's much more you need to know about your father's legacy. Audrey rose from her seat with newfound confidence. She surveyed the room with quiet dignity, barely registering her mother and sister's presence. What filled her heart was gratitude toward her father and resolve for the future now unfolding before her. Nathan's sleek Tesla quietly slipped away from the Regent Plaza's service entrance. In the passenger seat, Audrey gazed at the city lights reflecting on the rain-slicked streets. Her mind whirled with conflicting emotions, love for her father, anger toward her family, and the stunning revelation that her professional isolation had been orchestrated. "You must be exhausted," Nathan said softly. "I've arranged accommodations at the Archer Hotel. We'll begin reviewing the intellectual property transfers tomorrow morning." Audrey took a steadying breath. Why didn't my father tell me any of this himself? Nathan considered carefully before answering. Robert wanted to protect you and your work. He had recognized Elaine and Cassidy's intentions but chose strategic patience over confrontation. When his heart condition worsened, he accelerated his plans. But why wait 3 years? That was Robert's strategy. He wanted you to establish yourself independently, while gathering evidence of how his work would be treated in his absence, Nathan explained, eyes on the road. He knew you would continue to create remarkable buildings, and he recognized your potential to lead the firm better than he ever had. Audrey wiped away a tear. I never realized he had such faith in my vision. He never doubted you. He often told me, Audrey sees architecture not as buildings, but as solutions to human problems. That's the future. The next morning, Audrey met Nathan at his downtown office. Digital displays showed comprehensive documentation, copyright certificates, design patents, injunctions, and asset freezes, all meticulously prepared. Robert's architectural testament has been authenticated by the proper authorities, Nathan explained. The aita ethics chair who attended last night has also signed off. Elaine and Cassidy's access to the firm's intellectual property has been revoked, and all unauthorized modifications must be credited and compensated. What happens now? Audrey asked, examining a 3D model of her father's final design concept. The creative direction of Blackwood Architectural Innovations transfers to you immediately. All accounts, patents, and ongoing projects fall under your authority. We'll also reclaim all design elements that were inappropriately monetized. Audrey sighed deeply. Can I really lead an international architectural firm? Nathan smiled. You graduated top of your class at MIT's architecture program, didn't you? Robert knew everything about your capabilities. As for practical experience, the firm has excellent talent, and I'll provide whatever support you need. Robert planned for this transition in extraordinary detail. Over the following months, Audrey's life transformed completely. Legal proceedings moved swiftly, with Nathan's meticulously gathered evidence proving irrefutable. Elaine and Cassidy lost control of all misappropriated intellectual property and were required to pay substantial damages for unauthorized use of Robert's designs. Blake terminated the engagement, and Cassidy's carefully cultivated social media empire crumbled overnight. Her follower count plummeted as the scandal spread. Both women retreated from public view, relocating to a modest condo in the suburbs. Audrey moved her small design firm into Blackwood Architectural Innovations' downtown headquarters. Though initially met with skepticism, her sustainable design philosophy and collaborative approach quickly earned respect among the staff. You truly are Robert's daughter, you've inherited his visionary thinking but added your own humanity to it, commented the firm's senior design director during a project review. Audrey acknowledged this with a quiet smile. 3 months after assuming leadership, Audrey invited Nathan to her newly renovated loft apartment for dinner. Their conversations had evolved beyond business to include personal philosophies and experiences. There's something else about my father you haven't shared, isn't there? Audrey asked while decanting a bottle of Cabernet. Nathan considered before responding. Robert first approached me privately 10 years ago. He'd already detected concerning patterns in how his designs were being modified and presented. He orchestrated all this to protect his work? Not just his work, your future, Nathan said softly. His final request was simple: make sure Audrey's vision has the platform it deserves. Audrey smiled. You've certainly honored that promise. From that point forward, Audrey's professional fulfillment deepened. She unveiled a bold new direction for Blackwood Innovations, focusing on sustainable urban renewal and affordable community-centric housing. I intend to honor my father's legacy while evolving our mission, she announced to the board. Architecture should serve humanity, not just wealthy clients. We'll pioneer designs that address real social and environmental challenges. Her vision received enthusiastic approval. Audrey also established the Robert Blackwood Foundation for Sustainable Urban Development, which quickly gained recognition for transforming abandoned spaces into community assets. I want to create buildings that make people's lives better, just like Dad believed in, she remarked during a foundation launch event. Her relationship with Nathan evolved as well. He became not merely an advisor but a trusted confidant and creative collaborator. They began co-designing landmark projects, their complementary styles creating innovative solutions. The first day Audrey moved into her father's former office, she placed his portrait beside her drafting table and whispered, "Thank you for believing in me, Dad. I won't let you down." Outside the window, summer sunlight glinted off the glass facades of Boston's skyline. In a modest condominium on Boston's outskirts, Elaine Blackwood stood by the window watching rain streak down the glass. Her once designer wardrobe had given way to practical clothing, her carefully maintained appearance simplified by necessity. Across the living room, Cassidy sat hunched over her laptop, updating spreadsheets for the small architectural visualization firm where she'd found entry-level work. Her influencer account had been dormant for months, her engagement ring returned, her carefully curated social circle dissolved. "Would you like some coffee, Mom?" Cassidy asked, glancing up. The entitled tone that once characterized her voice had vanished. "Tea would be nice, thank you," Elaine replied softly. A year had passed. Their reality had transformed completely, from a sprawling suburban mansion to a two-bedroom condo, from luxury vehicles to public transit. Most significantly, they were supporting themselves financially for the first time. That afternoon, they arrived at Blackwood Architectural Innovations headquarters. The sleek reception area featured a glass door etched with Audrey Blackwood, principal architect and CEO. "Ms. Blackwood will see you now," the assistant announced, leading them inside. When the door opened, Audrey was reviewing blueprints at her standing desk. She had evolved from an underappreciated architect to a commanding industry leader. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Boston's skyline behind her. "Mother." "Cassidy." Audrey greeted them without animosity, her manner reflecting composed professionalism. "It's been some time, Audrey," Elaine said, her voice unsteady. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. Please, sit down." Audrey gestured toward a minimalist seating area. As they settled, she took a chair across from them. "We wanted to apologize," Cassidy said quietly. "For everything, the wedding humiliation, father's designs, all of it." "What's done is done," Audrey replied evenly. "I'm more concerned with what happens next." "What do you mean?" Elaine asked, tension evident in her posture. Audrey unfolded several documents. "I've drafted a new arrangement. It provides financial stability and implements the 15% provision father originally designated for you, Mother." They examined the papers with stunned expressions. "Why would you do this?" Cassidy asked, eyes glistening. "After how we treated you." Audrey's gaze drifted to the city skyline. "Because my father believed in rebuilding, not destroying. His architecture was always about creating connections, not walls." The two women remained silent, absorbing her words. "There is one condition," Audrey continued. "You'll both consult quarterly on the Foundation's community projects. Your educational background could be valuable, Mother, and Cassidy's social media expertise could serve a worthwhile purpose." For the first time, Elaine's eyes reflected genuine respect for her daughter's vision. On a snowy December evening, Audrey hosted the Blackwood Architectural Innovations Holiday Gala in her redesigned loft. The space glowed with warm light as architects, clients, foundation partners, and invited guests, including Elaine and Cassidy, mingled among models of sustainable building projects. To innovation with purpose, Nathan raised his glass in a toast. And to new beginnings. Audrey smiled as their eyes met. Their partnership had deepened beyond professional collaboration into something more meaningful. Near the window, Audrey paused by her father's portrait displayed alongside his most revolutionary designs. Her fingers lightly touched the frame. "You built something truly lasting, Dad," she whispered. Outside, snowflakes drifted silently over Boston's illuminated skyline.